My name is Ciara Kell, and most of my life I was the background noise in my own family. That evening, I was sitting near the glass door on my sister Mallory's terrace, where her garden party was taking place. I sipped on a glass of water while the laughter swelled around me. This kind of laughter, which is a little too loud, too rehearsed. I had heard it many times before. I knew exactly how it ended. Painting was in top form, told some childhood story about how I once spilled orange juice over my teacher in the 3rd grade and cried as if the sky was collapsing. Of course, she decorated everything. She always did, and the crowd loved it. My mother laughed the loudest. My father commented with a smirk. "That sounds quite like our Sierra." I didn't say a word. Then a little voice of laughter, like a cold wind, broke through the fog. "But she's flying the plane." The air changed. Chairs stopped creaking. Forks froze in the air. Mallory blinked down at her 10-year-old son. "What?" Liam turned to her, with big eyes, completely unimpressed. "Aunt Sierra is flying the plane." She showed it to me. "She wears such a headset and everything." Mallory's mouth opened, but not a word came out. I took another sip of water, did not nod, did not confirm anything, let the silence seem simple, long and heavy with meaning. Some truths do not need to be spoken out loud. Especially not if they come from the only person in the room who really paid attention at all. When you grow up with someone like Mallory, you learn to make yourself small at an early age. She was the child who demanded attention just by her mere presence, blonde, loud, incredibly fast with quick-witted comments about which adults laughed and made the teachers overlook her meanness. She always knew how to fill a room and, more importantly, how to make me disappear from it. I was quiet, had darker hair, was more of a bookworm. If painting was a firework, I was noise in the background. People noticed them and forgot about me in the same breath. I thought for a long time, that's how family works. Some children shine, others decorate the edges. Every school event became their stage. When I entered the honor program, she won the talent competition. When I was learning to play the piano, she choreographed a dance and performed it barefoot in grandmother's language. And somehow the family presented all this as completely natural. "She just has this spark," said my father, washing through her hair. "Don't be jealous, Sierra," my mother added, if I withdrew a little. "You are different, more down to earth, down to earth." That word stuck to me like tar. At some point, I stopped wanting to be seen. The less I showed, the less they had to compare. And the more silent I became, the more they took my silence as proof that painting was the better. She was a prom queen in high school. I worked at the school library on the side to save money for flying lessons that no one at home knew about. I never told them that I applied to flight schools. I thought you wouldn't be interested. Even worse, I thought they were laughing. When I got my registration letter, I opened it alone in my car in front of the post office. I remember sitting there, pressing the letter to my chest and smiling, as if I had stolen something. In a way, I had that too. A future that was not written by Mallory's spotlight. A version of me, untouched by the labels they missed me with family wedding. I considered myself Libra. "I still work at the airport," I said, and they nodded, while they were already looking past me. Mallory mixed in with stories about her new kitchen renovation, her husband's promotion, her influencer cooperation with some skincare brand. I did not interrupt. Never. Being invisible had become familiar to me, almost pleasant. But what they didn't know, what they had never asked, was that while they were laughing at the little sister who was once collecting flight lessons over 5 different countries over an orange juice house slide today, that I was learning to read weather conditions and to master emergency landings. I flew jets whose names they couldn't even pronounce, and I never thought of inviting them. My first solo flight was with an old Cessna 172 with faded blue stripes and a slightly jamming throttle. This was the type of aircraft that teaches one humility. Précision. Patience. I was 19. My hands were shaking on the steering horn. My heartbeat was booming in the headset. But when the wheels took off and the earth woke up under me, I just thought, this is mine. No one else is allowed to touch this. It's strange how clear everything becomes at 10,000 feet. I did my education in Arizona, far from the cold politeness at home, far from Estonians, where Mallory's stories always got louder than mine. The flight school was tough, competitive. I had 2 jobs, one at the airport with my luggage, the other cleaning at the hangar in the evening, just to be able to afford extra time in the simulator. I didn't complain. The silence suited me. She gave me space to become someone else. At the age of 26, I had my professional pilot's license. At 30, I was flying Gulfstreams for a charter company that serves CEOs, athletes, oil tycoons. I met people whose names the world only whispered. People shaking hands in conference rooms where decisions were made about countries. I didn't mention any names. That was not part of the job. The funny thing, my family still thought I work at the airport. Once Mallory asked at the Christmas branch, "Are you scanning tickets there or are you loading suitcases?" I just smiled. "Something like that," I said. She changed the subject before I could explain anything. Not that I had intended to. Explaining meant opening a door that I had learned to keep closed for years. My parents did not ask. They were too busy praising Mallory's latest renovation or telling about Liam being accepted into a highly competitive STEM subject summer program. So when I mentioned I was flying from NITS next week, they just blinked. Enza asked my father, "Is this in Nevada?" I nodded. "Clar. Dad, Nevada." They didn't care enough to notice the difference. And to be honest, I preferred it that way, because the truth is, if you are underestimated long enough, no one notices when you are ascending. And if you rise silently, without needing applause, then the other person is more unsettled than any spotlight ever is. I kept it that way on purpose. The uniform remained folded up in my travel bag. My headset was in a custom-made leather case. No framed certificates. No glossy pictures on the mantelpiece. I didn't post anything. No one from my family followed the charter company online. There was no risk that you accidentally came across a press release or a photo. I was intentionally invisible. But sometimes I did not ask myself because of their recognition. It was lost a long time ago. But I wondered what it says about a family that has been sitting opposite you for years and never asks you what you love. You actually? What are you proud of? What do you do when no one is watching? I wasn't hiding. I just didn't offer it voluntarily. And maybe that was my silent revenge. While they were exchanging stories about Chardonnettes and trivia, I watched the sun rise over the Atlantic from a cockpit window. I skated routes through turbulence and tailwinds. I brought strangers safely through the sky and the storm, and all this time no one at this table knew about it, until the one person who had never learned to look down on me spoke. The invitation came as a group message. Mallory sent them at 6:02 in the morning on a Wednesday. "Family in BQ with us next Saturday. Bring what you want. Let's chat again. It's been too long." I'll start on the message for a minute. The usual tone here. Loose, staged, pretending to suck while showing everyone who was in charge. She always chose the place, determined the guest list, decided the story even before the event even started. I mostly ignored their invitations, came with work excuses. Technically, they were even right. As a charter pilot, I was able to disappear over oceans in an hour, but this time, something told me to say yes. I typed, "I'm in it," before I could think too much, and immediately regretted it. Not because I didn't mean it, but because I knew exactly what she was going to do with it during the week. Then she wrote again. "Bring your famous fruit salad. Everyone is still celebrating it today. Lol." I hadn't made a fruit salad in years, and no one had ever talked about it. But I wrote clearly. Then came the photo of her garden. Fairy lights, coordinated outdoor cushions. Liam's new football goal is strategically placed like a decoration. Mallory staged the whole thing again like an Instagram shoot. Saturday came hot, cloudless. I was wearing a simple white linen shirt, cloth pants, flat shoes, hair tied back, no makeup, no jewelry. I parked 2 streets away out of habit. Even now, I didn't like the thought of showing up with something that they could evaluate. Her garden was already full. Neighbors, cousins, old family friends. Some top 40 playlist was playing from a Bluetooth speaker, and at times she hovered from conversation to conversation, as if she were running for office. She discovered me at the very moment when she poured herself a glass of rosé. "Well, take a look at who can still be seen," she sang, just in time to help with the corn. "You have always been the calm one, the reliable one." I smiled. "It's good to see you too, Mallory." She handed me the barbecue tongs as if it were a game, as if she still had the power to put me in the role she had intended for me, the helper, the harmless background. I took them because I wasn't here to discuss. I was here to watch. The usual dance took place. Mallory loudly told stories always as the heroine of the plot. Our parents beamed when she mentioned her son's school grades or her husband's real estate successes. When I threw in something like nice weather today, no one responded. Once she introduced me to a neighbor with a laugh. This is my sister Ciara. She's doing something with airplanes, isn't she? I nodded. So in the article. The woman smiled politely and walked on. Mallory turned back to the grill with a grin, as if she had successfully sorted me into the unimportant drawer again. I let her think I had come to fade as usual. I let her tell the afternoon as she wished, for I knew something that she did not know. Liam, her 10-year-old son, had spent the Thanksgiving weekend with me when Mallory and her husband were on a cruise. I took him to the hangar. He was allowed to sit in the cockpit, carry my replacement sheet. I had shown him what I was doing, not to get praise, but because he had asked. He had looked at me with big eyes and whispered, "Are you really flying this?" And I had said every week. He hadn't forgotten. The sun began to disappear behind the garden fence, cast long amber shadows over the terrace. People went to the second glass over the glass, which made their laughter louder and their judgments more relaxed. That was always Mallory's favorite time, when she could turn the spotlight into a weapon and then just call it fun. She was sitting on the wicker bench near the fireplace, wine glass in hand, surrounded by an expectant semicircle. I saw it coming, the moment when she leaned forward with that grin. The grin that she always wore when she wanted to bring a story that no one else dared to question. Do you remember when Ciara got lost in the supermarket? For almost an hour, she said, straight in the direction of our aunt. She cried so much that the store manager had to give her a lollipop to calm her down. And she was how old? 8th. I did not answer. I shrugged. Not even once. Someone laughed. I think it was my uncle. Another interjected. Ciara, really? I can't even imagine that. Mal continued to really get going now. She was always so dramatic about little things, even at school. Do you remember the science fair presentation? She just didn't dare. Stood there as if frozen. That was so typical, Ciara. I stared at my half-full glass of water. Still clear. My name was passed around like a party gag and everyone was so used to the taste that no one questioned it. Except for Liam. He sat with me, crossed legs on the edge of the lawn, holding a half-eaten water ice in his hand and watching his mother attentively. He did not laugh. He did not smile. His little eyebrows were drawn together so slightly that only I noticed it. Then he got up. "Mom," he said, not loudly, but clearly enough. Mallory paused in the middle of the sentence. "What is it, honey?" He went to her, looked at her in bewilderment. "Why are you making fun of Aunt Ciara?" Once blinked, out of time. "I'm not kidding myself, honey. We just tell funny stories, that's all." But he turned to me, looked at me, and then back to her again. "She's flying the plane." Silence. Real silence. The variety that lays down on the skin. Glasses stopped in the middle of the sip. Chairs creaked. Someone coughed, finished the noise, but did not. Mary's smile faltered. "You what?" asked a cousin, half laughing, as if he was not sure if the part of the Cholet nodded. "She took me to her airport. I was allowed to sit in the seat with all the buttons. She said she flies people around the world. She is a pilot." Mallory opened her mouth, closed it. My father's head turned abruptly. My mother frowned as if she had heard something in a language she had long forgotten. I did not move. I confirmed nothing. I did not deny anything. I just let it land. Let it float, let it settle. Her shoulders set like a truth that was too hard to laugh her off. No one knew what to say. It was the kind of silence that doesn't just fall. She remained stuck in the air like smoke after a fire. I knew this view from cockpits when a system fails in midair, and the crew has exactly 3 seconds to process it. But here it was not a technical system that failed. It was her story about me. Mallory still hadn't blinked. She stared at Liam as if he had betrayed her. Her carefully maintained image, the funny, quick-witted big sister with the pitifully invisible sister, was shattered before the eyes of her own son. And worst of all, she hadn't seen it coming. My mother slowly put down her glass, cleared her throat, as if she wanted to get the moment under control again. You, honey, I didn't know you were flying such planes. I smiled gently. You never asked what kind of planes. My father laughed dryly, tried to lighten the mood. Does it seem like you're good for surprises? No, I said calmly. You just had a lot of assumptions. There was nothing mean in my tone. Just that calm clarity you get when you've been overlooked and misunderstood for years, until you learn that you're not obligated to correct others. Aunt Waller chimed in, nervously cheerful. So I think that's wonderful. I mean, who does something like that? Right, guys, the room mumbled something that should probably be approval, but no one looked me in the eye. Because that would have meant acknowledging how long they had all been looking past me, and I had no interest in forced praise. Not tonight. Liam came to me again, stood by my side when he realized that I needed something stable, even if I didn't touch it. He was silent now, but his presence was loud, in that honest way that only children possess. I met Mallory's gaze for the first time in my life. She seemed smaller than me, not physically, but there was something shrunken in her eyes, confusion, and under it something that almost looked like fear. Shame, maybe, or just the shock, a version of me, for whom she had never written the script. Her voice was small. Why didn't you ever say anything? I slightly tilted my head, thought for a moment, then I answered honestly, because you never made room to listen. The words stuck. No one tried to wipe them away. Not even her. I got up. Stroke. Invisible wrinkles from my shirt. Liam looked up, hopeful. Are you leaving yet? I think I've been here long enough. His shoulders slumped a little. Are you coming back? I crouched down slightly so that only he could hear me. It depends. Do you still want to know what all the switches are for? His face lit up. Yes, then maybe, I said one day. I brushed his hair and turned to the garden gate. I didn't have to rush from it. Do not make a scene. The silence behind me said it all. This time she felt not like teaching, but like consistency. And no one stopped me. They just looked after me, like passengers who had just realized that someone completely different had piloted the plane. The morning after the barbecue, I was 37.00 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, wrapped in a silence that I had chosen myself. No one up here asked questions like he did. What are you doing again? No derogatory laughter, no new versions of my life as a punchline, just heaven. Slight turbulence and confidence. Trust of people who entrust their lives to me without knowing my name. I was sitting in the cockpit, hands calm, voice clear, focused. This is where I belong. Not on folding chairs in strange backyards, not in conversations that confuse silence with teaching. I thought about Mal, about the moment when her face crumbled for a moment, when her son uttered what she never could. She does not fly the plane. Maybe she didn't want to sooner, but she does. Present. Unmistakable. Really. I don't think she'll mention it again. I'm not expecting an apology, but I know she heard it. Everyone heard it, and for the first time they had nothing to say. Why didn't you ever say anything? I told her the truth because you never asked, not out of spite, not to hurt her, but because it's been like this for years. They had created a version of me that was small, quiet, practical, and I had left it to them because I didn't need their permission to grow beyond them. But Lee asked, he saw, he heard, and in a moment he reminded them of everything they had missed while they were too busy talking over me. That's what stayed with me the most. Not the silence afterwards, not the embarrassed looks, but the expression in his eyes when he said it. Clear, proud, unimpressed. He didn't say it to defend me. He said it because it was normal for him, because for a child who grows up with truth, power does not have to be loud. To be real, I carried that with me into the clouds. I don't need my family's applause. I don't need any understanding. I just need what I've always had. Runway, altitude, and the peace and quiet that only comes when you know exactly who you are. And up here, heaven doesn't ask me where I've been. He just clears the way for me and lets me fly.